Welcome to www.happynumbers.org. Ratios and proportions, and we're going to be dealing with some real-world problems here. But let's just review very quickly. A ratio compares two numbers. 5 is to 10. A proportion compares two equal ratios. 5 is to 10 as 10 is to 20. And what are the characteristics of a proportion? If it is true, 5 is to 10 as 10 is to 20. If we cross multiply, then we would have to get the same answers. Now 10 times 10 gives 100, and 5 times 20 is 100. So this proportion is true. And we can use this property of proportions to solve problems. And let's take a look at one here. Our problem says a recipe calls for 2 cups of sugar for each 5 cups of flour. 2 cups, this is sugar, is to 5 cups of flour. Okay, a recipe calls for 2 cups of sugar for each 5 cups of flour. How many cups of sugar are needed for 15 cups of flour? Well, okay, flour is here, 15. So how many cups are we going to need? So let's let this be X. Well, now we have a proportion, and now we can solve for how many cups of sugar we're going to need. So we have a recipe that calls for 2 cups of sugar for every 5 cups of flour. But we want to expand our recipe. So we want to use 15 cups of flour. Then how many cups of sugar? Well, again, the cross products will be equal. So 5 times X will be 5X equals 5 times 15 is 30. We divide by 5 and divide by 5. This cancels out, and X equals 6. So we would need 6 cups of sugar. So then our proportion would be 2 cups of sugar is to 5 cups of flour, as 6 cups of sugar is to 15 cups of flour. Excellent. Well, that's how we can use proportions to solve real-world problems. So I'm going to put a couple of problems up for you. I'm going to let you work them, and then you'll turn the DVD or video back on. I'll read the problem to you first and let you work it, and then turn it back on, and we'll go over it. A light green paint is made by mixing 8 parts of white paint with 3 parts of green. How many quarts of green paint are mixed with 24 quarts of white to make the light green color? Well, see if you can handle that one. Go ahead and put your video or DVD on pause, work that, and then turn it back on again. Let's see how we did. Light green paint is made by mixing 8 parts of white, so white, 8 parts of white, pardon me, with 3 parts of green. So the green is the denominator. And how many quarts of green are need to be mixed with 24 quarts of white? Well, 24 quarts of white, and how many parts for green? Let's let G be the how many quarts of green. Well, now we know if we can cross multiply, our cross products would be equal. So 8 times G would give us 8G equals 3 times 24. Well, let's see, 24 times 3, that's 12, carry the 1. 6 is 72. We divide by 8 and divide by 8, and G is equal to 9. 8 goes into 72 9 times. So we would need to mix 9 quarts to make our proportion equal. Good. Let's put up another problem for you. Let me erase this. On a map of the United States, 2 inches represents 650 miles. How many inches of map distance represents 1,625 miles? Okay, so put your video or DVD on pause, set up your proportion and solve it. Turn it back on, we'll take a look. All right, 2 inches represents 650 miles. And we want to know how many inches, so we don't know, we'll call that X, of the distance represents 1,625 miles. Well, okay, we can use the properties of proportions. We know that the cross products are equal. So 650 times X gives me 650X. 2 times 1,625 gives me, pardon me, 33,250. You'll have to know your 1,625 multiplication table to do this, by the way. That's just a joke. All right, so we divide by 650. We divide by 650. This cancels out, and X equals, and I happen to know that 650 goes into 3,250 5 times. So 2 inches on a map represents 650 miles. 5 inches on the map will represent 1,625 miles. By the way, this is a very typical kind of problem that they will give on the California high school exit exam. Okay, let's take a look at another one using proportion to solve problems. Let's try this one. A car travels 450 miles in 8 hours. At the same rate, how long will it take to travel 225 miles? Okay, shut off your video and set up your proportion and solve this and turn it back on. The car travels 450 miles in 8 hours. And at the same rate, how long will it take the car to travel 250 miles? Well, 225 miles, and how long will it take? Well, let's just say that's y. Well, we know if the proportion is true, we can use the properties of the cross product being equal. So 450 times y would be 450y. And 8 times 225. Let's do that. Let's do that here. 225 times 8. That's 40. Carry the 4. 8 times 2 is 16 and 4 is 20. Carry the 2. That's 16, 18. So 450 equals 1,800, and we divide by 450, and we divide by 450, and this goes away, and we come out with y equals 4. So a car can go 450 miles in 8 hours. How long will it take for a car to go 225 miles? It will take 4 hours. And we use the properties of proportion to solve that. Have one more for you. And again, this is another example, very typical for the California high school exit exam, to have a problem in proportions like this. If 12 7/10 centimeters are exactly 5 inches, how many centimeters are there in 2 inches? All right, we'll put your, and by the way, you can round this answer off to the nearest hundredth. Well, put your DVD on pause. Go ahead, set up your proportion, solve this problem, and then we'll take a look. Okay, 12 7/10 centimeters are exactly 5 inches. So we have centimeters on the top, inches on the bottom, is equal to how many centimeters? Well, we don't know. We'll put y they're in 2 inches. Okay. Now we can use our cross products. 5 times y is 5y. 2 times 12 and 7/10, let's do that here. Times 2, that's 14. Carry the 1. 2 times 2 is 4 and 1 is 5. 2 times that is 2, and we have 1 decimal place. So we have 25 and 4/10. And actually, let's just drop the 4/10 because it said we're going to round our answer, and we'll just use 25. Now we have a simple equation, divide by 5, and we have y equals 5. 12 and 7/10 centimeters equals 5 inches. 5 centimeters equals 2 inches. We solved for y. Well, good. Good. Well, that's basically it for the entire lessons on ratio and proportion. Again, a ratio compares 2 numbers. 2 is to 4. A proportion compares 2 ratios. 2 is to 4 as 4 is to 8. We can write it like this. 2 is to 4 as 4 is to 8. And of course we have the property of cross products. If we multiply this and this, and we multiply that and that, and this, if this is a true proportion, then if we multiply this times this, which would be 16, and 8 times 2 is 16, then this is a true proportion. Well, excellent. Thank you very much for your time, and we'll see you next time.